On today's episode of the Hoop Life Productions podcast, AJ and Chance go over NBA stars that are on the move via trade or by buyout. Guys like Blake Griffin, Andre Drummond, John Collins, Nikola Vucevic, and Kyle Lowry. But before we begin, you can check us out on Instagram at Hoop Life Productions, and then on Facebook, Hoop Life Productions Podcast. Make sure to give the video a like if you enjoy it, and then subscribe to the channel. We're on the road to 100 subscribers, so if you could help us out, we'd love that. So without further ado, AJ, play the intro.
NBA stars that are on the move. I think it's obvious we should probably start with Blake Griffin.
Yeah, for sure.
That's your guy over there in Detroit.
Would you say he's the worst player on this list at the moment?
Absolutely.
And the weird thing with him is they're probably not even going to find a trade, but just for the fun of it, we're going to see if any teams would or could possibly, fill salaries to match up with Blake Griffin's massive contract. So
yeah.
The first team I had on my list was the Miami Heat. With them, he can play the four alongside guys like Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo. At times, he can space the floor and then score in the post. It really depends on the day with Blake Griffin. He's not playing if he has injury management, and then if he's got enough days of rest, he's usually a lot better. As a Pistons fan watching him, that's kind of been the deal with him this year. Like, he shows up for games against the Lakers and Clippers and all those teams. Like, he'll show up for those, but he's a no-show for most of the games other than that. So
yeah, and I'll be straight up. I'll give you full credit because you created our trade scenarios we have here. And
did all the notes.
So when you did Blake, I imagine it was the easiest because you had to get the least amount of value back.
Yeah, it literally doesn't. As a Pistons fan, any trade, we're not going to get value back. We're literally just going to get salary fillers and expiring contracts back. And that's fine. That's literally fine with me. We're ready to move on.
Yeah.
He is too, so.
And that was obvious because you said, for Miami, you put right here, Iggy's going to get bought out by Detroit.
In the trade, yeah. He's just a salary filler at $15 million.
And Leonard's out for the season. And Olynyk might be the only one that plays if he does.
And not anything more than half a season, so.
Yeah, and it's just, like you said, it's just to get him out the window. The only, piece really for the trade to Miami that's super valuable here, not super valuable, but any value really, is Wayne Ellington. So I don't watch Detroit as much as you do, but I know you mentioned to me that he's kind of calmed down from the hot streak he started out on this season.
Wayne Ellington, yeah, he has. I mean, he's come back to his normal form, which is still a pretty good floor spacer, and then he competes on the defensive end. So there's value with him, but I think you have to package another player of value alongside Blake Griffin for people to want that contract. You know what I mean? So putting Ellington in there might work. Who knows? But
the thing about Blake is, I feel like most teams that are trading for him are going to be teams that are trying to lose games. As bad as that sounds, because from a Thunder fan perspective, I'd love to have Blake Griffin because it would just secure us with a worse pick.
But then the other side of that is a buyout, which is most likely to happen, and obviously he's going to sign with a contender if that were the case.
Yeah.
But
so. Yeah.
We can go over the next two teams quickly. I had Dallas and Denver as the next two potential destinations for Blake Griffin. Obviously, we don't know, but in the trade, it would be Blake Griffin and Wayne Ellington again, and then a 2020 second-round pick. The Pistons own two of them, so they'd still have, the normal two picks in the draft. And then for James Johnson expiring deal, and then Tim Hardaway Jr.'s expiring deal. So, again, the Pistons are getting nothing long-term of value here. Maybe they re-sign Hardaway Jr. for a smaller cap hit, but yeah, the theme here is this expiring deals to get rid of Blake Griffin's
Yeah.
contract.
The theme also seems to be that the team that's really benefiting from these trades is Detroit just trying to get him off the books.
Yeah.
Like, Dallas, I'd be interested to see what they would do with a guy like Blake. Like, would he even start? Because their lineup.
Well, with that $36 million contract, I feel like he would. And then the other part of that is who else could play the 4? Like, I think Michael Porter Jr. probably plays a small forward, right?
Yeah, we're talking about Dallas here, though. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Flashback another minute here. We're talking about Dallas. You pair him with Kristaps Porzingis in the front court, and then obviously Luka, who plays pretty much every position. But yeah, he'd be the best small power forward on the roster.
Yeah.
Maybe. What do you think?
I mean, does Kleber play the small forward for them right now? Is that what he's doing? I wish I
I want to say he's a power forward, and
Yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned that because he's actually a pretty solid guy for them.
But I mean, I feel like he could play the 3 because I know he guarded Kawhi and Paul George in the bubble last year, so it's not like he doesn't have the athleticism to do so.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it'd be interesting. I think Dallas is one of the few teams that'd be able to fit him in here well.
Right. The thing with Blake Griffin, if he maybe his morale will go up on more of a winning situation. I think he was tired of being in Detroit. Obviously, they're in a rebuild at the moment. Maybe his morale goes up and his will to play basketball will go up with that, and But who knows? But now moving on to the Denver Nuggets. Like I was saying, you could pair him with Michael Porter Jr. and Nikola Jokic in the front court. And the best part of that is they play a very slow pace, and obviously Blake Griffin really fits well with that. So I think it could be an option for Denver to make a Blake Griffin trade.
Yeah, I feel like you said, I mean, you were talking about him when you weren't supposed to be, but what you were saying makes sense. Like, this is a team that could use a guy like DeLon Wright in a deal here. So that makes sense. Guys you get back like Gary Harris, I mean, he went to Michigan State.
He's got 2 years left on his deal, and I mean he's a rotation guy at this point.
Coming back to the
and
state
a
of
salary
Michigan.
filler.
So yeah, I mean, these deals about Blake Griffin, there's not a lot to talk about because it's really all about getting him off the books. Like, you're not going to get a lot of value back.
Yeah.
But I feel like in terms of what Detroit gets back,
it's probably the best of the 3.
Denver's
right?
probably the best. Maybe Dallas, because I think Hardaway is probably the best player here. Like,
I would agree with that. Yeah.
over like Iggy, James Johnson.
Will Barton's not bad.
Yeah, Will Barton's pretty good too. But I don't know. I guess if they were going for guys that are going to play and help them win now, it would be Dallas. But I think Denver's probably the best trade overall for them.
For sure.
So, are you ready to move on to
another Andre
former
Drummond.
Piston?
Yeah.
Andre Drummond.
It's funny that they pretty much were put on the trade block on like the same day this week.
Yeah.
As a former Pistons fan, I was like, these guys were the ones that literally led us to the playoffs and carried a bunch of scrubs. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But
I'll be straight up in this. I'm kind of confused with Cleveland's want to get rid of him. Maybe I'm not paying attention enough. Are they just trying to go younger here? Like, is that what they're doing? They don't want to.
Well, at the moment they're on an 8-game losing streak with Drummond at their starting center, so they're obviously not looking toward the playoffs. Like a month ago, we were thinking wow, they could actually be like a play-in team, maybe squeak into the playoffs. But as of late, they had some injuries, and now they're like.
I saw Skip Bayless say the other day that Jared Allen is better than Andre Drummond right now. I don't know how to feel about that.
There's a case for that. The thing with Drummond is at times he tries to be something he's not, and that's.
Point Drummond.
That's the problem when you have a lack of talent around Drummond. And that's been the case his whole career, right? There hasn't been much talent around him. But if you trade him to teams like the guys that we have in our or the teams that we have in our list, like Charlotte, Boston, Toronto, Sacramento, there's more talent on those teams, and he wouldn't have to be a vocal point on the offensive end. So let's start off with Charlotte. What is the trade package for Drummond?
So you got Drummond and a second-round pick for Cody Zeller, Malik Monk, and Bismack Biyombo.
And I'll let you start with that one.
I want this to happen.
I do too. I love that.
I love the Charlotte team already, and what they're missing is a guy at the 5.
I feel like they would do that. Would you?
Man, absolutely. Man, a lineup, not a lineup, but like I feel like we see LaMelo on House of Highlights and Sports Center all day anyway. But if you know how many clips we would get of LaMelo to Drummond and LaMelo to Bridge, it would just be a fun team to watch.
Right now it's LaMelo to Cody Zeller.
Yeah, and
who's not bad. I like Zeller as like a second unit kind of guy, not a long term. And the center has been like a hole for them ever since I was watching basketball. Pretty much, they haven't really had.
Yeah, they never have.
Much
They've had a hole at every position, except for
that's fair.
Yeah, for a while. But
I want to say Al Jefferson was pretty good on their team
Al
for a
was
while.
nice. He was
Very
like
underrated.
the last back to the basket guy.
Yep.
Yeah, shout out to Al Jefferson. I forgot about that guy. But
so yeah, that's an enticing deal for
wants
Charlotte.
To see this. Yeah, and I wouldn't mind to see this next one here that you got with Boston.
Yeah, I like
is
pretty much all
for Tristan Thompson, and the trade exception with the Gordon Hayward deal.
The largest trade exception in NBA history, by the way, at $28 million.
Yeah.
With this trade, Drummond's salary is at about $28 million, but then you throw in Tristan Thompson, who's at around $9 million, I want to say. So you're using $19 million, I think, if my math is correct. Was never very good at math, but but you got $19 million of that trade exception going to the Cavs. So
it's an interesting situation because I could so see a Boston makes up. Obviously, Boston's going to be in the playoffs with or without Drummond, but a situation similar to when Rudy Gobert in the Jazz. Rudy basically got played out the game in the playoffs a few years ago. I think you could see the same situation with Boston and Drummond here, but you could say the same thing about Tyson, Tristan, and Thompson. So I think it's just an upgrade for them. And
for sure, it's much needed interior defense and rebounding, which they haven't had with.
And we've never seen a fully motivated Drummond because he's never had a team that could contend.
Tatum and Brown would be easily the best players he's ever played with, right?
Absolutely, not even close.
Well, 2018 Blake Griffin
was really good. Yeah.
But yeah, we've already talked about Blake Griffin,
Yeah.
So yeah, Boston's already a playoff team, but that increases their ceiling for sure. Moving on to their Eastern Conference rival, the Toronto Raptors. Now this is the least likely of the four in my opinion, because Toronto in the deal would be giving up quality pieces. It's either a Drummond for Lowry swap, they're both expiring deals, or they throw in guys like Norman Powell, Aaron Baines, and obviously Powell has been a part of that team ever since I began watching basketball, so I don't know if they'd be willing.
The weird thing about this is I absolutely wouldn't do this if I was Toronto.
Yeah, I agree.
But the reason Toronto is even an option here is because they need help with that center position. Mm-hmm. But the only reason they're in that's at their fault. They let Ibaka and Gasol go. They didn't keep either of those guys, and they wouldn't be in that position. Well, maybe not Gasol.
I don't know if I don't know if let them go is the word. I mean, they went to Los Angeles over Toronto.
Yeah.
We've seen guys like Kawhi in the past do that as well, but
yep. It's interesting.
As a buyout option, I like that more.
Yeah.
But I also see Drummond not being a buyout option.
Yeah, I think it's at least
you can at least throw some salaries together to make it work. You're not going to get much back, but yeah, moving on to our last team, and this might come as a surprise because Sacramento's not known for, trading for, high market guys. You know what I mean? So, in this trade, it would be Drummond and Damian Dotson as a throw-in to make salaries work for Corey Joseph, Nemanja Bjelica's expiring deal, and then Jabari Parker's expiring deal. And I like this for Sacramento as well because they can run Drummond at backup center, or they can run him at starting center because Rashawn Holmes has been balling.
The only thing that worries me is Sacramento seems to be the place where centers not named Rashawn Holmes go to die. Hassan Whiteside's barely playing there.
As of late, they had the best center in a while there with DeMarcus Cousins.
Yeah, but
I get what you're saying as of late.
Yeah.
That's there's just no risk involved in that because you're giving up three guys that aren't even playing for you right now. Bjelica might be playing 15 minutes a game, but he's not. You're not complaining that you just lost Bielitsa in a trade for Drummond as a Kings fan. So yeah, that was our last deal for Andre Drummond. Moving on to the, I would say, second best player on our list. We got the best player
so far.
Yeah, best player so far for sure, and that is John Collins of the Atlanta Hawks. And long term, he is probably the most valuable piece out of the 5 on our list. But yeah, we're gonna talk about the Boston Celtics again, putting together a trade package for John Collins. And this is just one that I put together. It was John Collins and Rajon Rondo returning to the Celtics. That would be something. For Romeo Langford, who's not in the rotation, Aaron Naismith, who is barely in the rotation, Semi Ojeleye, and probably some first-round picks, maybe. I know Danny Ainge is not usually willing to trade first-round picks, but, at some point he's got to put more talent around Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, and Collins obviously is talented.
And this is a situation I think this would, remove Marcus Smart from the starting lineup, because it would be Kemba,
Brown,
Tatum,
Collins,
and
Tice. Yep.
Tice. So, yeah.
I do like that.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good team.
Collins as a third option is obviously a plus for sure.
Yeah, almost a fourth option with Kemba.
And he brings front court scoring that's much needed. And obviously he's on a small contract, so you don't have to throw in your...
Get him out of a situation like Atlanta where they have a lot of games still, even with Capella, where Capella's out because of COVID or something like that, where they try to run him at the 5 and he's not a 5. That's the problem. He can't defend at the 5. That's just how it is. He's too small for that. And he would be perfect in a place like Boston.
He raises their ceiling for this season. And then if they can find a way to re-sign him in free agency this summer, they'll be a good team in the East for a while.
As a huge NBA fan who grew up, the first time I got really invested into the NBA, obviously, I think my first recollection of watching the NBA is, Dwayne Wade in that finals run with Shaq. But, the first time I ever really got invested was the season with the 2008 Celtics with Rondo and all those guys versus Kobe and stuff. And I remember loving Rondo so much, and it would just be so cool to see him in a Boston uniform again. Yeah. So that'd be really cool to see.
Another thing about Rondo, that free agency signing made no sense at the time.
Yeah.
I don't know what you thought about it, but
they already had 2 guards in Trey and
Rondo came from a great situation in LA that was perfect for him because he's around a lot of veterans that think a lot like him. But they signed him, and then they went and signed Chris Dunn. I was like, why? They're like this.
And then you look at other guards, besides the point guard position, there's already Bogdanovich, who obviously is out, and
Trae Young, obviously.
Cam Reddish. All those guys are going to take minutes. I don't know. It didn't make a lot of sense.
I think the Hawks were too premature in their free agency signings. And I don't think it was their GM's fault. I want to say it was their owner was pushing for them to make the playoffs when this year it's the most useless NBA season in a while.
Yeah. And
you can make the case
for a team like Boston, who kind of struggles with their depth, if they were coming off because we know a guy like Rondo just flips into a different player in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
And we know Marcus Smart's been known to be really valuable in the playoffs. Do you imagine, how much better their depth would be if they had, Rondo, Smart, and, Tristan Thompson coming off the bench who all have experience? That would really help them for sure. Because all these guys that you have as their trade, Semi Ojeleye, Naismith, and Langford, they're all young and they're not going to do too much for you off the bench.
Our next team is the Chicago Bulls, and this one's pretty much just a John Collins for market and swap. They're both obviously young power forwards, but they're expiring deals, and you're pretty much just exchanging situations, right?
Yeah.
And I think they're better fits on their new team, or what would be their new team.
If I'm the Bulls, I'd do this in a heartbeat. And I'm not saying that I wouldn't do it if I was Atlanta either, because marketing could really help them too. But for just a straight-up swap, I think we can both agree Collins is the better player right now.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
in terms of fit, marketing on the Hawks is a lot like a Gallinari, right?
Yeah.
But that was another thing. I don't know why the Hawks signed Gallinari either for that much money.
Especially because they're not playing.
And he's getting up there in age. So yeah, Collins for market and swap was our second trade offer for John Collins. Moving on to our third one, we had the Washington Wizards. And this was just it was pretty much Collins for Hachimura and I said a top 5 predicted first round pick, but I mean you could pretty much throw any first round pick in there, and I think Washington considers it.
I said I'd do it if I was Washington, simply for the fact that they're gonna have a top 5 pick probably.
Yeah.
Like they're just awful. So
yeah.
They've gotten a little better, but
actually, I don't agree that they're awful at the moment. As we're recording this, they're on a 3-game win streak, and the East is wide open, so that they could very well get carried by Bradley Beal and Russell Westbrook to a play-in tournament.
Yeah.
Obviously, I don't think they'll do anything with that, but yeah.
Yeah. All right, here we have one with Phoenix. You have John Collins going there for the rookie Jalen Smith and a first-rounder.
This is my personal favorite because I think John Collins is a perfect fit for the Suns.
Yeah, of course.
Think about it. Think about this lineup right now. Chris Paul, Devin Booker, Mikal Bridges, John Collins, DeAndre.
And that's a nice team.
That raises their ceiling to a championship contender, in my opinion. Right now, I think they would, at best, peak their probably a second-round exit.
I don't know how to feel about them because I think any team with Chris Paul is a team that you don't want to run into in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Especially with Devin Booker, because Devin Booker has showed that, even though his teams haven't always been to the playoffs, when they do get to a situation that matters, he's the same player. He doesn't need that playoff experience that he doesn't have. He's going to get there, and he's still going to be Devin Booker. So if you give them John Collins, that's a dangerous team.
That is a filthy starting lineup.
That's nasty. Because DeAndre Ayton can do everything Collins can't, and vice versa. And then Chris Paul I think Chris Paul, LeBron James, and Damian Lillard, in no order, are the 3 best leaders in the NBA. I don't know how you feel about that. Steph Curry's up there too. And Chris Paul, any team he goes to, I mean, obviously he's showing again in Phoenix that he just has that immediate impact. They've been a losing
Chris Paul he raises the ceiling of any team he goes to, and then I think it would be the same with Collins.
I'm trying to think of the last time Phoenix had a winning culture until now, and I think it's when they had Dragic, Bledsoe, Gerald Green, and the Morris brothers back then. That was the last time they were decent. And shout out to Chris Paul, but yeah, Collins takes them, like you said, their ceiling up a lot more.
And then the package in that would be their first-round pick.
And
Jalen Smith and a first-round pick. I'm glad you knew his name because I could not think of his first name for a second there.
When I was looking at it, I was like, Josh Smith does not play for Phoenix.
But yeah, Jalen Smith, like you said.
Has he played?
Barely.
That was a weird pick.
I think this is such an obvious... Yeah, it was a weird pick. I had other guys. I liked him.
You liked him a lot, but we did not see that
I liked him as a mid to late.
Yeah.
Not mid lottery.
Yeah.
But yeah, you just give up him in a first round pick and Phoenix is ready to go. And it's not like you're trading for a guy that's that much older than Jalen Smith. So
yeah.
I think I would for sure do that if I was Phoenix. And then our last team again is the Sacramento Kings.
Once
again. They're just a sleeper team that is, I think they're ready to make the playoffs. They just need another piece in the front court to take them there. In this trade, I had John Collins and Chris Dunn for Marvin Bagley and a top 5 predicted first-round pick for either this year or next year. It doesn't really matter. But yeah, pretty much Atlanta's just trying to get whatever value back they can in a first-round pick. And Marvin Bagley, who has been quite unproven, right, for the Kings, and I'd like to see him in a new situation. So
it's crazy to think they took Marvin Bagley over Luka and Trae Young. That's just so... Even if
that's going to haunt him for a little while.
Yeah, even if he ends up turning his career around, gets his stuff together, the chances that he's Trae Young or Luka Doncic are so low. But it's not an awful return for Atlanta.
I don't think it's the best return.
I think it's probably the worst one here. But I don't think it's... I mean, they want to shop Collins, so...
You should make the case that the Phoenix package is... But obviously, these are mock trades, so who knows if this is even the package. But this is just what
Moving into the best player on our list,
So, Nikola Vucevic. I came up with a list of 5 teams that could potentially trade for him, and we'll start off with Boston. What do you got with them?
All right, so we got Vooch for Rob Williams, Aaron Naismith, Romeo Langford, a trade exception, and a first.
Yeah, so you're pretty much trading all your unproven talent if you're Boston, which is good. but bad. And then obviously that trade exception, which you would still be using most of that trade exception because the 3 guys you're trading don't take up much salary. So Boston gets much needed front court depth with Vucevic.
This team is nasty. Like,
yeah,
Kemba, Marcus, Jalen, Tatum, and Vooch. That's a nasty team. Yeah, like you said, just a lot of unproven guys that could get minutes over in Orlando.
This only happens if Orlando is even willing to trade Vucevic, right?
Yeah, because it's the thing about Vucevic. I feel like we have this conversation every year. Like, he's that one guy that never actually gets traded. But it would be interesting. Romeo Langford was a guy I loved at a high school and college, and he just hasn't done anything yet because he hasn't had any chance. And I'd love to see him get some minutes. Aaron Naismith's kind of been a disappointment so far, but
right.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. So then the next one here we have is for Chicago. This is the one that I was actually, if you're from the Midwest and you're listening, you know that Culver's is an amazing fast food place. Anyway, I was in the line at Culver's when you texted me this the other day. This deal that you created.
We had a little
dispute over it. You had Vooch, Aaron Gordon, Evan Fournier, and Aminu for Otto Porter, Wendell Carter Jr., Lauri Markkanen, Thaddeus Young, and a first for this year.
Man, if you follow us on Instagram, I actually posted about this with like a 3-paragraph analysis on why this makes sense for both teams.
I read that. I was on the toilet at Amazon.
Nice. Yeah. Nice. Cool.
Yeah. Go on.
Yeah, let's move on from that. Chicago gets more of a win now mindset with these guys. Vucevic, Aaron Gordon, and Fournier, and Aminu. All those guys are... 2 of them are solid. One's a rotation guy, and one's obviously a perennial all-star now. So, I just think they need to move on from some of that young talent that doesn't work well together. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they seem to have that problem. That's the one thing I agreed with you when we were talking about this. Is like, you're right, their talent has not come together the way we wished it would.
And you pair another star with Zach LaVine, and I think they should do this trade because I think it prevents Zach LaVine from leaving next summer, right? Because he's a free agent in 2022, not this summer, but the one after that. So.
Yeah. So you think it's similar to the whole, like, they're very different in terms of how good they are, but like Milwaukee brought in Drew Holiday to keep Giannis. Do you think it's like similar to they're bringing in Vooch to keep LaVine?
Yeah, that's very similar. Yeah.
Except that they're still probably not like a finals contender.
For now they'd be a first round exit, but like you still have guys like Kobe White and Patrick Williams who aren't even closer to their potential because they're like not even 20 years old yet. So.
And how old is Vucevic? Do you know?
Vucevic is 30 or 31 at the moment. So
he's getting out there.
He's still got
5-6 years
with his play style. He's got probably 4 or 5 prime years left. I would say.
Yeah. And we go on here to my favorite scenario. You have Vucevic, Aminu, James Ennis going to Dallas for Tim Hardaway Jr.,
James Johnson,
Tyrell Terry,
and Josh Green,
and two first rounds.
So pretty much they're going. They all, to be honest, they don't have that many first round picks to begin with because a couple of them are going to the Knicks, but they need another star around Luka Doncic, and I think Vucevic comes in right away, and he's the second best player on their team.
Well, Seth, that's at second. So you got him. You think he's a better player than Porzingis?
I do.
I think that comes with the health.
And Porzingis can play the 4 either way or the 5, and then Vucevic is obviously a center.
I don't know if you watch a lot of Dallas games. I think Porzingis is now he's a lot better at it because he has these skills, but he's similar to Drummond. I think he just wants to be a guard. Like I watch a lot of his games, and he could just post up, and I see him pulling up from 3, and all that. But
yeah, they've got him playing the starting 5 right now, but obviously if Vucevic comes in, he'd have to move. So.
And this is what this makes it another. This is a all-European team. They got
yeah, that's another part that makes it make sense.
Got Luka, Maxi Kleber, Porzingis, and Vooch.
It's the most Dallas Mavericks thing ever, though.
Yeah,
like,
of course.
It seems like that's always how it is.
Yeah. That's my favorite scenario, just for the fact that he goes there.
A new big 3 too.
Yeah.
So.
And they need some help right now.
Yeah, you need as much star talent as you can get in the West, just because it's that top heavy. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So. Yeah, moving on to our next team. And it is the LA Clippers, first time making the list here. So, I had a package of Vucevic and Morris for, or no, it was Vucevic for Marcus Morris, Zubac, Luke Kennard, and whatever picks they own, because I don't think they have many.
Thunder got them all.
Yeah, exactly. It would be a package of second-round picks most likely. So, it's pretty much the Clippers going all in for a third star, and losing out on a little bit of depth, but obviously Vucevic is far and away better than all of those guys. So
for sure,
I like it for this year and long term.
Yeah, and the Clippers seem to be going under the radar because of how bad they ended things last year, but they're actually playing great basketball, and they bring in Vooch. I mean, that puts them right there with the.
They're not blowing the leads like they were late last season. So
it has a lot to do with Paul George stepping his game up. So bringing in Vooch for them is huge. And then we got our last team.
We're mentioning the Sacramento Kings again. But this trade was Nikola Vucevic, Evan Fournier, and Al-Farouq Aminu for Buddy Hield, Marvin Bagley, Rashawn Holmes, and Corey Joseph. So
poor Aminu and Joseph.
I just keep throwing him
everywhere.
in. Yeah, I just keep throwing him in all these trades. But I mean, that's kind of what you are when you don't produce and you have a bigger salary than what you're worth.
You were saying earlier, imagine just being known as a salary filler.
Yeah, that's literally. I mean, they're kind of rotation guys, like borderline 10th, 9th guys.
Aminu has situations where he plays big minutes,
but in terms of the Kings, he would be arguably their best player, alongside De'Aaron Fox, and then
swooping right now.
Fournier goes along with him in his expiring deal. And for the Magic, you get Buddy Hield, who
just doesn't want to be there. It looks like.
Right? Yeah, he's struggling, and I think a new situation would do him a lot of good. The same with Marvin Bagley, and then Rashawn Holmes, who has been one of the most underrated centers in the league, and I think you mentioned that earlier. But yeah, I mean, you get 3 valuable pieces there. I mean, at worst, they're rotation guys, right?
Yeah, the one thing that concerns me about this, or not concerns me, but I guess what upset me a little bit is I feel like we still haven't gotten a chance to see Mo Bamba play decent basketball, minutes. And if they take Holmes here, then he's in the same situation. Not gonna play a lot, but obviously they're not gonna make the trade based on.
Khem Birch has been getting more minutes than Mo Bamba.
Yeah,
I think that says a lot.
Yeah, I agree.
You could say what you want about him being in a new situation, but he should be their backup center. But Khem Birch, who the heck is Khem Birch? And he's taking up their minutes right now.
Yeah,
no offense, but I mean, I've heard of the guy, but
yeah,
he's not well known or anything.
Yeah.
So that's all of our trades for Nikola Vucevic, and we're turning on to our
last player
probably least likely traded guy, and that's Kyle Lowry of the Toronto Raptors, the veteran guard. We'll start off with our trade package with the Miami Heat. I actually had a couple scenarios. It was Lowry for Iguodala, Myers Leonard in a first, or Kyle Lowry for Goran Dragic and Olynyk. And if I'm the Heat, I'm hoping that the Raptors would do the first deal, because obviously Dragic is a core piece for them. But at the same time, I think Kyle Lowry is an upgrade over Goran Dragic. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, obviously he's an upgrade. But I guess it would just all depend on a new situation, like how Lowry would play in that scenario. But Kyle Lowry's a veteran, so he's probably going to ball wherever he goes. But like you said, this is probably the least likely to happen.
Yeah.
I just don't know if Toronto does it.
Toronto probably wants to make another run. And with what Lowry's done for that franchise, I don't think trading him is all that fair. Unless he really wants to trade, obviously. But
yeah. If they do it, I mean, The Heat is probably my favorite, that I'd like to see.
Mm-hmm. He's like a Heat culture guy too, in my opinion, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Kind of fits that, and then he brings that veteran presence, as does Dragic does on the Raptors, and he's not a huge drop off from the Raptors. So
the Heat have always been, except for when they had like the big three and the Heatles or whatever, but they've always been like similar to Memphis, where they just have a bunch of dogs. Like they just have that type of mentality, and that's exactly what Kyle Lowry is. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I'd like to see that.
And our next team, we were mentioning the LA Clippers again. I had a package of Kyle Lowry and Terrence Davis for Marcus Morris, Patrick Beverly, Ivica Zubac, and some second-round picks. This is actually not a bad package, right, for an expiring deal.
I think this is good for Toronto because they get another dog mentality point guard back in Beverly. He's obviously not Kyle Lowry, but then they also get a center, which they need other than Chris Boucher because Aaron Baines is not playing.
Every guy that the Clippers would be trading there is on a long-term deal, so it's not like it's an expiring deal. Like these are guys that can be rotation guys this year and then the years to come. So I kind of like that for the I like it for both teams first of all, but obviously the Clippers are going all in here for a third star. So
and then
our last trade scenario of the
this
video.
one here makes me mad.
It makes you mad.
Yeah.
Okay.
Why in the world would Dallas? Why?
There you go.
Why in the world would Toronto expect anything less than Luka Doncic back for Stanley Johnson? No, but in seriousness, you have Kyle Lowry and Stanley Johnson for James Johnson, Dwight Powell, and Tyrell Terry.
Speaking of Stanley Johnson, the best piece in this trade, not Kyle Lowry. Stanley Johnson,
probably the greatest salary filler here.
Yeah, exactly. Stanley Johnson's one of the greatest Pistons of all time. I still don't know why they traded him for Thon Maker. God, that was such a drop off.
Thon Maker's a legend too, but he's not Stanley Johnson.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, sheesh. Yeah. Who knows what the Pistons are doing nowadays? But
Stanley Johnson, Thon Maker, and Darko Milicic are somewhere on there. Isaiah Thomas and Joe Dumars are somewhere in the mix, but they're not like those guys.
For sure. Yeah. Not near the level of talent.
No, absolutely not.
Anyways, that was all jokes. Let's get back to real basketball talk. In this trade, it was Kyle Lowry, Stanley Johnson for James Johnson, Dwight Powell, and Tyrell Terry, who we liked coming out of the draft, and that's why I think he's probably the most valuable piece in this trade because we both think he'll be a really good player. He just hasn't gotten the minutes for Dallas so far, and obviously with this trade they go all in, getting a third star, pairing Luka Doncic with Kyle Lowry. And Lowry, he's a much-needed veteran presence that I don't think they have right now, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Doncic is still kind of figuring out his role as a leader. He's still 21 years old. There's not a lot of guys in the league that have been, the vocal leader in the locker room. And then, obviously, Porzingis has had his problems off the court and on the court, too. So, you can't expect him to be a vocal leader. So, I think Lowry is a guy that's good on and off the court for them.
Yeah. Dallas, they kind of they have their stars are very young, like Luka and Porzingis, and I think if they had a veteran with some leadership come in there, it'd be really good for them. And then Tyrell Terry is probably the biggest, would you say it's the biggest piece that Toronto's getting back here?
That
simply for his potential.
Dwight Powell, who was on a 3-year deal. Yeah. Not a bad number. I think it's around $10 million, which for a backup center, Dwight Powell he's not bad,
Yeah.
So, I think that was our last trade. So that's pretty much going to wrap up the video. If you haven't yet, give the video a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe to the channel. We're on the road to 100 subscribers. A massive number, right? I mean, so
it's amazing, man.
So subscribe, join the journey. We're just getting going with this. We love doing it. So, you can check out our Instagram page at Hoopplay Productions. Our Facebook page, it's Hoopplay Productions Podcast. That's pretty much the end of the video.
Just remember to eat your breakfast, sleep well, and don't be a Houston Rockets fan.
Stay in school, kids. Yep.
Yeah. Yep. So that's pretty much it, right?
Yeah, very awkward ending, but yeah.
You guys have a good one.
Yeah, peace out, guys. We're done.